Hello, Brave Nation. I'm Dr. Lawrence Locklear, Director of the Office of Student Inclusion and Diversity here at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. I'm excited to talk with you today a little bit about the history of UNC Pembroke and what makes us unique from other institutions in the state of North Carolina. The University of North Carolina at Pembroke was founded March 7, 1887 as Croatan Normal School to serve the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina by training Lumbees to be teachers in segregated Indian schools. The first few decades of operation proved to be challenging for the institution as it struggled under the weight and oppression of Jim Crow segregation and underfunding from the state. However, the educational opportunities provided by the institution forever changed and began to uplift the Lumbee community and other American Indian communities throughout the state of North Carolina. Many Lumbees educated at the institution became the first teachers in Indian communities throughout the state. It wasn't until 1939 that the institution offered a 4-year program. Consequently, the first 4-year Bachelor of Arts degree was awarded by the institution in 1940. Between 1939 and 1953, the institution was the only state-supported 4-year college for American Indians in the United States. Unfortunately, during this time, American Indians were not allowed to attend most other institutions of higher education in the state because of their race. In 1952, 2 years before the landmark 1954 U.S. Supreme Court decision, Brown v. Board of Education, which ended segregation and opened schools to all applicants without regard to race, religion, or national origin, Pembroke State College was integrated. Reverend Christian White, a white student, transferred to the college. He graduated in 1954. Other white students began to enroll at the institution in 1953. The college's affordability and great value was an attraction to students then as now. The enrollment of the institution boomed during the 1950s and early 1960s. The racial makeup of the student body became even more diverse in 1967 when the first African American student enrolled. Larry Barnes joined Brave Nation as a freshman, and Sylvia Baum Banks transferred into the college. Sylvia became the first African American graduate in 1969 and Barnes the second in 1971. Larry Rogers became the first African American student athlete in 1969 when he joined the cross country and track and field programs. He was followed by fellow African American student athletes in 1970, including Fonzo McCray with the men's basketball program. Donna Moody later became the first female All-American at UNCP as a member of the women's basketball team in 1983. Today, the UNC Pembroke community reflects diverse ethnicities, backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences. U.S. News & World Report recognized UNC Pembroke as among the most ethnically diverse universities in the South. During the 1950s and 1960s, as the college's student body became more diverse, the United States underwent a social and political revolution during the Civil Rights Movement, which sought to end discrimination and garner social justice and racial equality for marginalized and minoritized identities and communities. In 1958, a seminal event in the history of the Robeson County and Lumbee communities was supported by the college's American Indian students and Dr. Walter Gale, the president of the institution. The Ku Klux Klan held a rally in neighboring town of Maxton to put Indians in their place. Lumbees turned out in force and drove the Klansmen away in an embarrassing rout that came to be known as the Battle of Hayes Pond. President Gale was inspired in planning the Indian response to the Klan rally, a reflection of his concern for the community and the campus with its Indian and white student body. Activism by the college's students continued after the battle at Hayes Pond. Students were involved in the anti-war movement during the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War in the late 1960s and early 1970s. A small group of students started an underground newspaper called the Pine Noodle as a counter-protest to the Pine Needle and an expression of student thought and action. Students have used other methods and platforms to raise awareness of social justice issues on and off campus. The peaceful student march through the town of Pembroke in 2020 and campus protests during the following fall semester illustrated the activism that has been present in the student body since at least the 1950s. UNC Pembroke's student athletes have also been on the front lines of the battle to end racial inequality and social injustice. In the late 1940s, members of the Braves football team were reminded of the harsh realities faced by Indians and persons of color who lived in the segregated South. During a trip to a game in South Carolina, the team stopped at a restaurant to get something to eat. Although the players and coaches saw the whites only sign on the door, they still sought to be served. After entering the restaurant, A man came from behind the counter and told the head coach that the team would not be served at the restaurant. The team left. The UNC Pembroke Athletics Department coined the phrase, "never walk alone," during the summer of 2020 to showcase unity with UNC Pembroke student athletes, coaches, and administrators who participated in a peaceful march through the town of Pembroke in late June. The phrase uplifts and empowers student athlete voices and their connection with the broader Brave Nation community, a connection that has stood since the 1950s. The UNC Pembroke athletic logo, which features the university's mascot, the red-tailed hawk, and the brave, is showcased prominently on the uniforms of student athletes. The red-tailed hawk is indigenous to Robeson County. Its selection as the university's mascot reflects the traditional relationship between Indians and animals. Indian traditions teach that some animals were sent by the great creator to serve as guardians and teachers for humans. The logo shows the hawk closely nestled with the brave in a protective posture. The Brave Nation community personifies the qualities and protective nature of the red-tailed hawk. The brave represents the student body. Consequently, the logo represents the university's athletic teams and the relationship that exists between Brave Nation and the students, while illustrating that students and student athletes never walk alone.